My name's Robert Monroe. I'm a lecturer in film and media at Queen Margaret University. So what I thought we'd do today is give a brief introduction to who we are and then pass over to you guys for Q&A. We also have a student ambassador with us, Louise Duncan, who will give you a bit of her story as a film and media student in terms of the student life, the course, and all the different things that she's experienced in her time here. I was in the same position as you guys over a decade ago now, more years than I would care to remember. But I was an undergraduate film and media student as well at Queen Margaret University. I really loved my 4 years here. So after going to work in the media sector for a couple of years, I then came back to do a PhD, a postgraduate degree for 4 years. I then left to get another real job in a film education charity and came back in 2018 to become a lecturer here. Partly the reason to tell you that is just that I still have fairly recent experience of what you guys are going through, and I know the course from both sides, both as a member of staff and as a student, but also just to highlight the fact that it must be a pretty decent place if I keep coming back. And genuinely, I do think Queen Margaret is a very supportive university. It's a very nice place to be. We're a very small university, as you might be aware, and I think that has real strengths in terms of having a really good community spirit. You get to know your classmates very well and your teachers very well. Also with us in the room, we have Marty Zeller-Jacques, our programme leader in film and media, and Graham Drysdale, lecturer in film and media as well. And we teach slightly different things, so hopefully between us, we will be able to answer any of the questions that you might have, whether they're more theory-based or about getting workplace experience or about the filmmaking side of things, which is Graham's particular expertise. So I'll get Marty and Graham to introduce themselves first and then pass on to Louise. And then after Louise introduces herself, we'll move on to some question and answers from you guys. So Marty, do you want to kick off first?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Robert. So as Robert said, I'm Martin Zeller-Jacques. I'm the program leader for BA Film and Media, and I mostly teach on the theory side, and am particularly interested in the way media is changing as digital technology shifts our expectations and our use patterns. And that's something that we're getting a really kind of live demonstration of in terms of how we're all coping with COVID-19. We've had a lot of these technologies in place for a long time, but now all of a sudden, all of us are using media in a bunch of different ways, and it's affecting aspects of our lives that we maybe didn't think it would. So it's affecting the way we eat, the way we shop, the way we talk with each other, the way we communicate. There have been a lot of features about dating in the world of COVID-19, which I found really fascinating to read as a kind of old married man, that people are discovering new ways to connect online in those spaces as well. And for me, that's a kind of encapsulation of what's great about studying film and media is that everything in your life is mediated in some way or another. This is a widely applicable degree, which hopefully will shape the way that you think about the world every day, and in that way will be hugely useful to you, not just professionally, but as a person. And I'll pass over to Graham.
Hi there, everybody. Graham Drysdale here. I teach the more practical side of the degree, along with one other lecturer, Walid Salhab. So I teach digital filmmaking in first and second year, and I supervise dissertations, filmmaking and screenwriting dissertations in fourth year. And I teach a screenwriting module in third year, which is quite popular, which is good. I have to say our students do very well in the industry. A number of examples that we could point your way. It's a 50-50 or 60-40 theory to filmmaking degree, but if you're more interested in the practical side of things, from third year, you've got many more options to take. We have a range of gear from Adobe Premiere software, After Effects. We start off with Canon 700Ds. And then in fourth year, you have access to a Blackmagic Ursa Mini. We try to get students to make films that they're passionate about. We try very hard to accommodate their interests. We try not to sort of lay down tram lines that you can't go outside. And we try desperately to make the students work outside of the modules so that they can make their own films, because the more you make, the more you will learn. And we try to get our students to make films for clients, for websites, again, for things that they're interested in, because really that's what you'll be doing if you're going to work in the industry. You're going to be making films for clients. So yeah, I'll pass over to Louise, who's just about to graduate, hopefully, sometime soon. Okay, Louise?
Hello there. Yes, gosh, let's hope I graduate. I am, as they said, first year film and media student, though my first year I started as theatre and film, so it was quite nice to hear the little chat earlier. It's been an incredible sort of mix of the practical theory, and I have been taught by all the gentlemen here, which is wonderful, and Jill, who's also in the chat. And it really is, it's true what they say, that you get the opportunity to use some brilliant equipment, that you are making films from first year, and that you're learning those practical skills alongside that really interesting theory about how the industry is changing and what you can use it for, how you can use it. So I myself, with my, I guess, sort of work colleague who has been on the course as well, we sort of are just in the process of setting up our own production company, because we've been given those opportunities to, take the dive and to do a film out with class, and it's led us to get some really good experience.
Very much, Louise. So what we're going to do in this talk, some of you might have came to the open day and be a little bit familiar with some of this information, but it's worth reminding you as well. I was going to talk, more broadly speaking, about the kind of 3 different strands that we have across all of the modules that we teach here, and that are central to how this program, Film and Media, works. We revalidated our program last year. This is, universities do this every 5 years. They look at all the things that they teach and they think, what is still relevant, what needs tweaked, what needs updated. And we kind of realized that there were these 3 areas that our teaching focuses on: critical media and cultural studies. And this is part of the interactive task that I want you guys to do later on. How do different media create meaning? When we watch films, how is it that they are telling their stories to us? How are they representing the world? How are they creating meaning in terms of kind of wider themes that they articulate? And not just films, but also television shows, newspapers, any type of media. How do they create meaning that's kind of important for us in our lives? And I think the last bullet point on this was really important, and probably the most important thing that I learned, or skill that I developed in my time at university. How do you think critically about the world around you? And to think critically doesn't necessarily mean to criticize, but it just means to think about the information you receive in whatever medium that might be, and kind of weigh it up, think about the evidence, and come to an informed and reasoned conclusion or point of view or argument about that information. Obviously, all of you guys are aware about debates over the past 4 or 5 years over things like fake news. So we might argue that it's never been more important to think critically about the world, critically about the stories that you receive and the information you receive in order to have an informed opinion about it. As well as thinking about media on that, what we might call kind of textual level, we also think about media on a more practical level or pragmatic level. Who owns the media that we consume? How are these businesses structured? How do they have to be regulated by governments? And probably quite importantly, the third bullet point down here, how do they change with new technology and new technological developments? It's increasingly important in terms of how the film industry is changing with the rise of Netflix and other kind of streaming services. And what we would kind of say is that it doesn't just change the way that you consume media, but it changes the nature of the media itself. So when Netflix, dump all 10 episodes of a season at one time, it changes your relationship to what television previously was like. And the third part, and it's important to point out as well that these are all kind of overlapping, and they're not exactly discrete, as media making. It's a key part of our program here. Each year you will be creating your own media. It might be films, it might be news stories, it might be social media campaigns, it could be photography. There's a whole range of different things that we look at. And obviously, if you understand how stories are told, you're probably going to be able to tell them better. If you understand how media is structured in terms of the business and the economics of it, you might be in a better place by the end of your degree to get employment in those types of industries. So I think the three things are very related, and sometimes there's a tendency to see them as discrete. You know, you want to come here and be a filmmaker, and you don't want to do the theory stuff, but we absolutely feel that the three are necessary to work in partnership with each other. What I wanted to talk about in a wee bit more detail is the types of modules that we have across the 4 different years. As you'll see, those 3 different strands that I was mentioning, they come up in every year that you're studying with us. So in first year, you have those 2 different production modules, skills and techniques, and then the video project at the end of first year, where you can start to develop those skills in editing and cinematography and lighting, audio recording, framing, all of that type of stuff. You have then also your more traditional kind of media theory and analysis modules, 3 of them throughout the course in first year. The ones that I've put up in bold with that kind of peachy colour in the background are your core film modules. So in each year, and as you get to 4th year, you'll see there's an extra one. The kind of film part of your programme is quite specific to you and the theatre and film students who work with us as well. Studying cinema is one of the new modules we brought in as part of that revalidation, where you look at the history of cinema and also history of kind of different theoretical approaches to cinema, from psychoanalysis to feminism to queer theory, to all these different ways that we can think about how films tell stories, how they make meaning, how they represent particular communities or different types of folk. And also media and communications industries, which is one that I teach, is where we look at the business and the structure and the economics of all different types of media industries and how they affect the type of media that we consume. So a good example of that might be recently we focused on this year with the students, we looked at Disney and its enormous growth as a film studio, which just last year bought a rival film studio, 20th Century Fox, gave them a market share of over 33% of the Hollywood box office. They obviously created their own streaming service, which I think launches in the UK on Monday, Disney Plus. So we look at its growth and how it's become so successful, not only for to understand that success, but also to think about whether that's good or bad for society or for democracy, whether one studio has so much power. So we think about that kind of thing. One other thing I wanted to point out about the modules, specifically in year 2 and 3, you can see in year 2 we have one called Client Project, and then in year 3 we have Entrepreneurship in the film and media communication sectors. A key part of what we try and do here is prepare you for the world of work. It's something that's really central. It's what we try and teach students, is not only to understand the media, but also to perhaps nurture your own business, so that when you come out of 4th year, you've had a lot of experience working with real clients and real situations. So the 2nd year we're on Client Project. We have businesses and charities come to the university and say, okay, I need a new social media campaign, or we're launching a new menu in the restaurant. Can you create a video to advertise that? And the students kind of pitch for that work and take it out as if they are really being employed to do it. So it's a really good way to build up your portfolio, to build up those kind of skills and pitching to real employers for the future. So that's central to years 2 and 3. And also lots of our students, when they finish in 4th year, do set up little production companies with the Business Gateway that is situated on campus. Actually, when I graduated in 2011, one of my good friends, Michael Grant, he set up his own business with another student, Agatha, and the Business Gateway in 2011, and they still run that business now. It's still really successful. So almost a decade later, they're still doing that type of work. One other thing I wanted to point out about the modules in 3rd year and 4th year is where you can start to tailor the module to your own interests, or the things that you do best, or think that you want to do more of in the future. So you have these elective modules, which is where you can make choices about the types of things that you want to study and tailor the course to your own interests in a wee bit more detail. This is just some of the electives that we have. We do kind of add some in each year. It's important to point out that not all of them run every year. We sometimes switch them about. So one might run one year and another might run in the following year. But as you can see, there's a wide range of stuff there. If you're more interested in production, in 3rd year, you can take video production and screenwriting, and there's photography practice as well. So you can really start to tailor your degree in that direction. Global journalism is another example of a practical module, which is running this year for the first year and has been hugely successful. And obviously, until events have overtaken us, students were going out onto the streets and creating their own journalist pieces, shooting little bits of video and creating little podcasts as well. You have your more traditional kind of theory modules within that as well, like Scotland on Screen, one that I look at, television drama, Marty's module, food, film, and media. But we could point out as well that they're not purely kind of only academic and theoretical in that sense. Increasingly, what we're trying to do at the university is to encourage students to approach these theoretical subjects through making media themselves, and not just in the written essay in that more traditional sense. So I know Marty this year on his module has had some students creating little videos instead of writing, a blog piece or whatever to analyse the way that food's represented in film and media. And one that I wanted to point out that I've been teaching, which again has just ran for its first year this year. It's called the video essay. And again, it's kind of reason for existing is to encourage students to think about theory and history within film and make media that kind of represents that rather than producing a written essay. So I wanted to show you a very short example of this. It's only about 30 seconds long. This was a video essay created this year by one of our fourth year students. It was terrific. It was a really excellent video essay. He's had some YouTube experience in the past, so he was quite familiar with how to create this type of work. But what he does really nicely in this is marry that theory and history that you get in modules like studying cinema and film genre and adapt it into a more practical type of submission. So I'll play you the first 30 seconds of this.
Quick as possible. So when you read about horror movies, you get a lot of these guys, the monster guys, especially in the 1920s, 30s and 40s, and then they just can't stop. But then one guy does a stabby scene in a shower, and boom, slasher movies. But I would suggest it was much less like one died and then one was born. Rather, I would suggest the Hollywood Renaissance was like some evil science juice that murdered and then mutated the monster movie into the slasher film. Don't believe me? Well, to explain this, history from an art student. I'm so sorry.
So that's just the intro to Anton's video there. The whole thing is available on YouTube, so if you were interested to see it, you could email me later on and I can send you the link. But it's terrific, and he does that really well, takes the film theory and history that he's learned in other modules about the horror genre, specifically those subgenres of the monster film and the slasher film, and create a really compelling video to kind of analyse that, in a way that you might do in a written essay, obviously using the video instead. So that's just a selection of the different types of modules that you can study here. Again, Marty, I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add that maybe I missed or skipped over from those different modules.
No, I really like the emphasis you were placing there on integrating the practical with the theoretical. Things we're seeing from a lot of our students is that they really enjoy and engage with media in a wide variety of creative ways. And essay writing is important for that because it's detailed and it's giving you a chance to really synthesize a bunch of different skills and knowledge. But video making and podcasting and other forms of creative output can be a huge part of the way they approach the world already, and increasingly important part of how they kind of exist culturally and how they might produce work when they go out into the professional world. So we're really trying to stay up with the curve there and make sure people have the opportunity to fully develop their whole skill set across all the different parts of the degree. So they get to use everything they're learning in every module. Robert is one of the people really leading that.
As well, it's something that we aspire to do and that we're getting a little bit better at, and it's probably going to become more common when you guys join as well. We're always looking at ways, existing modules, maybe not necessarily a video essay module, but existing theory modules, can we do creative submissions instead of only written essay submissions? Like Marty, I would also stress that the written essay is sometimes absolutely the best way to approach things, but we want to give students more options in that sense. Just to wrap up, and Marty, feel free to jump in if there's anything else you'd like to add, and then we'll hopefully still have 5 minutes or so for questions. We do think that understanding how media works and how it tells stories will make you more employable. We talked about the employability built into the program. Certainly make you a better storyteller if you understand narrative techniques and mise-en-scène and all these types of things. What I feel is very, very important, and I think Marty feels the same, we hope that you will be more able to think critically about the world by the time that you leave, and weigh up evidence and information to come to a more informed and reasoned opinion. Personally, I think film and media students become better people, and much more kind of all-round better people to talk to at parties and all that kind of stuff as well. And like I mentioned earlier, our email addresses are on there, so if you want to ask us anything to follow up, feel free to get in touch with us over the summer. We'll open it up for questions now. I just wanted to pick up on a few things that were mentioned there while you guys are typing some questions in the chat. It was great to hear Louise talk about setting up her own production company. And it's quite a common route, actually, for a lot of our film and media students. When I was graduating in 2011, almost a decade ago, terrifying, one of my colleagues or my classmates, Michael Grant, he set up his own production company, and it's still going strong. They've been recording some of the coronavirus videos with Nicola Sturgeon and putting them out on social media. So, you know, almost a decade later, their production company is still going strong. And it's part of that kind of what Graham was talking about, you know, getting you making films right from first year as frequently as possible. We quite often have kind of celebration screenings of them as well. So you get the Silver Swan screening, which takes place where Graham and his team make these lovely little statuettes. I believe Louise has probably been a recipient of one of them in the past, where we celebrate all the films made by the students. And then at the end of fourth year, we have a graduation film screening. And it's a really great night where industry guests are invited along as well as the kind of higher ups from the university. Prue Leith was there last time out. So there are these occasions built into the programme as well to celebrate the work that you're doing as it's going on. And also picking up on what Graham was mentioned, it's the reason people tend to set up production companies at the end of their time here is it is built into the course. So from second year onwards, you're kind of working on client projects, you're getting that experience to pitching to charities or businesses, how you can create, and it's not just films, it might be a social media campaign or other type of media promotion. And you get that real life experience of dealing with external clients, as well as obviously building up your own portfolio so that when you graduate, you've got this body of work to show potential employers. Alongside that is the theory side, which Louise mentioned and Marty spoke to in great depth. And I probably teach more on that side. I do a tiny little bit of production as well. And we still value that absolutely central to a university degree. As Marty was saying, perhaps never more so than the current moment. Off the back of fake news and into COVID-19, our lives are increasingly mediated. How do we weigh up the information that we receive and make critically informed judgments about the world that surrounds us? It'll not only make you a better kind of thinker, but it'll make you a better filmmaker as well if you're able to kind of think about how the medium of film works to create, you know, complex and interesting movies at the end of your time here. So we try and cover all those bases. There are those kind of strands of the programme. It's kind of 50-50 between production and theory. And as Graham mentioned, when you get to third year, you have your elective choices. So each semester you normally get to choose one module from a whole range of modules, which are both theory and practical, sometimes both at the same time. So you can tailor the degree to your own interests. Louise maybe took more of the production modules. We had Kyle Gaffney in the previous chat saying he thought he was going to start out making a film and ended up taking more of the theory modules. So the degree is built in with that kind of flexibility, so that it adapts around how you kind of progress as a student in your 4 years here. Nicola has said, do many of the students use the Business Gateway to start businesses? Yes, and that's a good thing to highlight. That I think we might have been the first university in Scotland to have a Business Gateway on campus. So when you get to the end of fourth year, and I don't know if Louise has already been down this route, you can go and have a chat with them and they can give you advice about getting a business started up, you know, for free, tailored to you. We also offer graduating students a kind of year's worth of access to production equipment. So Graham and Waleed, you know, you can still come and chat to them even though you've graduated and borrow equipment. So it's not as if you graduate and then that's it. Max has asked, what are all the opportunities abroad for this course? Across the university, you have the chance to take a semester abroad in third year. This came up in the previous chat as well. There are lots of different destinations: America, Canada, War has been one that I've seen. Some of the students were in Finland recently as well. So there are those opportunities that are widely available to everybody at the university. I think you have to submit a supporting statement as to why it would be beneficial for you to go abroad. Whenever students have been and come back, they've always been hugely complimentary about it to me, certainly. Question from Stephen, is there a way for a second year direct student to get access to first year coursework learning? Yes, absolutely. Direct entrance will have a kind of bit set aside in the induction week for them, where we will kind of, in a sense, kind of catch up with what you might have missed from first year. So myself and Marty and other lecturers, Graham as well, will kind of create a kind of program of work for you to try and catch yourself up so you don't feel too far behind. There is a really kind of rigorous support system at the university for direct entrance or the student services who can help people who have financial difficulties or who are kind of suffering mental health problems. There is that support network built in around the university as well.
So in terms of the kind of union and society element of it, there is usually always, though there has been two different ones in my time, like a film club, our production society. And so for the people who are involved, it's them deciding what they want to do, and whether that is making films or just watching films or discussing films. I think it's really interesting how the students, it's student-led, they can do what they want. In the same way that I thought there was a music society, and so I went ahead and started it, and I was supported by the union and was able to spread the message through the uni, and it was very much sort of extracurricular but still enjoyable, and from that I've met people from all over the uni on all different departments. It's very much, you're never really stuck just with film and media or just with your set people. I think similarly, I've always done the class rep work, which can be as much and as little as you want to give to the role. I've had chances to be on different senior committees within the uni, which has taught me a lot about how admin works and about certain types of how do you read certain forms and how do you talk in large groups of academics or in a sort of a more business professional setting, which I don't think I could have got that experience necessarily anywhere else, but it has been really vital in terms of now the kind of client meetings that I do, in terms of taking notes. How do we formally format something that we can then send back to them later? I've also been involved in the officers' work in the Students' Union, which most of the time has just been a great laugh, but has also been really important for helping, other students get involved. So you're not necessarily just featuring your sort of degree or your academic life, but there's also a really good chance to be able to give back to younger students and newer students who maybe don't necessarily know what they're doing or where they're going.
Just one of the pieces of subtext of what Louise was saying there is a really important thing, which is that you tend to get out of university what you put into it. And Louise has been someone who, from the very beginning, was looking for those other opportunities to broaden her horizons, to try new things, to get involved in every aspect of the university experience. And I know we've all appreciated having her input across lots of different levels of the course. And I hope that she feels she's had a really enriching experience as a result of that. But I'd say, whether you want to serve on committees or be a class rep or not, taking that mentality to your studies at university is really key to success. Think, what can I get out of this? If I feel like I'm not getting it, can I ask how to get it? And you will tend to find you have a more rewarding experience over time.
Maddie asks, is it common for your film media students to get course-related work or work experience during the summer break? Yes, that is quite common in various different ways. Lots of our students volunteer at the Edinburgh Film Festival, and lots of them will be picking up bits of production work as runners while they're studying their course here as well.
We have a very active career service who are very good at finding little opportunities, and we've had students work as runners on Top Gear, so we try and push the students to get out and get summer jobs actually in the industry.
It's like you were saying, Graham, the more filmmaking that you can do throughout your 4 years, the better a filmmaker you're going to be come the end of it. Katie asks, do you have any politics modules? The answer to that is kind of yes. I think Marty might agree that most of the kind of theory stuff that we teach is politics with a small p. It kind of runs as a theme throughout most of the things that we teach. Certainly Marty and I teach a module in third year called Media, Politics and Culture, where that features very, very heavily because, you know, inevitably politics is intertwined with media when it comes to politicians creating legislation or regulation on how media works, whether it comes to things like censorship or the kind of more broad political questions around capitalism and the organisation of our society. So we absolutely feature that throughout the 4 years. We've got Cassie asking how many first-year students have previous experience in filmmaking. Graham might know better than me, but...
Yeah, to be honest, we take it from kind of year zero. We assume that people don't know anything about filmmaking. And often students have said to us, even if they do, they appreciate going back, so to speak, and learning how we teach. Don't be at all worried about not having any experience of filmmaking. It's, from first year, there's 2 modules, both factual, so you'll make little sort of documentaries. But it's a great way to learn how to use the camera, how to edit, how to interview people. And then in second year, you move on to making short dramas, short fiction films.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to Craig's question, Graham, as well, about whether students are encouraged to make factual rather than narrative works. And I get the sense that there's an even mix, and then when you get to your 4th year dissertation, you know, it's your free choice as to where you go with that.
Exactly. First year is factual, second year is fiction. Third year, you can choose what you want to do. You work in a group, 2, 3, or 4 people. But in 4th year, it's an individual film. And again, you can choose whether you want to make a documentary or a fiction or a corporate film or a pop video. The pop video option has to have a kind of documentary alongside it on the band or the performer. But yeah, we try and keep the options wide open. There's also an opportunity now for a group dissertation where one person can write the script, another student can direct, and the written aspect is slightly larger. It's a 5,000 word essay instead of a 2,000 word essay, but often students form partnerships, as Louise has with another student, and they want to work together. So we recognised that and made that into an option for the 4th year practical dissertation.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Just backtracking on some of the questions there. Scott asks, what is a runner? I guess that's a kind of slang term.
Yes, exactly that. They're the person on the... It's usually an entry-level position. It's good if you can drive, if you've got a driving licence. But really, it is doing all the odd jobs around the set where people need... You know, there's always problems on a film set, whether it's a student film or a feature film, and things have to be fixed. The actor's ill, the actor's destroyed their costume or whatever, so you've got to run and find this thing. So it's just an odd job there.
And I've seen students who, over time, have done well professionally by starting off as a runner and essentially just proving that they're trustworthy and reliable and get things done and anticipate needs. And you'd be amazed how far that alone, if you have no other skills, the ability to just do what you said you were going to do and not get in the way will get you very, very far in life.
That's a great point, because that's something we try and encourage the students, because they always come back, or not always, but some students will come back and say, oh, I couldn't shoot today because of X, Y, and Z. And we say, well, in the industry, you'll be faced with those very same problems. You have to have a can-do attitude. I will do this. How can I do it? Because people that are moaners or complain about stuff don't get very far in the industry, because you just get known. People that have a can-do attitude, who can fix things, who can react well to trouble or conflict. Because group work is a big part of it. You're always going to be working in a group. In first, second, and third year, you work in groups in production modules, and there will be conflict in those groups. And we do try and talk to students about how to resolve group conflict, because group work is a huge part of media work. And if you can be good in that situation, you'll go far.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always the feedback that comes from the industry whenever you speak to them is, yeah, it's great if you know how to use this specific camera or this specific editing software, but really we just want you to turn up on time, do what you say you're going to do, be reliable. You know, those soft skills are massively important. There's a couple of other questions that we'll just quickly wrap up, and then Nicola can share some links if you have further questions.
We had a question of what was the process of creating a university society? It was really super easy. There's like a form you get from the union website, all very straightforward. You just get 10 people, tell them what you're doing and when you're doing it, and then you can do it. It's incredibly supportive, so don't ever worry that that's a hurdle to sort of get involved with other people.
Do you get financial support for your society?
Not in your first year.
No.
As you've sort of got to prove that what you're doing is worth it in terms of you've got to do a little bit of fundraising. I think you've got to host at least 2 fundraisers, one which is at least in the union. But then after that, basically, there is a application process where you sort of put forward your ideas, the budget, how much you need, how much you want. And usually students get it. There's sort of a little bit of differences in terms of sports will often get a little bit more because they need it directly for equipment or van hire, the price of varsity and stuff like that. But the Musical Theatre Society, which is a really big group, they always get a big lump sum to go towards hiring their theatre space so that they can then put on their show.
Great, thanks Louise, and thanks for catching back on that. I think generally speaking, the Student Union is hugely supportive of people trying to set up societies and clubs. Roughly 45 students per year. Again, it fluctuates depending on the intake. You might be sharing modules with other students on different programs, so it could be about 100 students. Seminars usually 15 to 25 people. Generally speaking, it's a small university, so you will get to know the staff and students quite well in that sense. Just one more that I think we missed from Kazia. What editing software is being used in the first year? I think Graham would say as well, it's Adobe Premiere Pro, is that right?
Exactly. We've got all the creative suite for Adobe, so you've got After Effects, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, Adobe Premiere. That's what we use from first year till fourth year.
Excellent, thanks, Graham. The question from Jacob there, what would you say is the biggest difference between film and media and communications? Do you want to take that one, Marty?
Yeah, sure. And I think I'll roll in Kaya's question after that about is there discussion of television as well. We tend to take a pretty broad approach to what we mean when we talk about film and what we talk about media. There's nothing that is off the table. And I mean, if you were to ask me candidly what I think media is, I think it's human civilization. Like I'll go back as far as I need to go back. Once we start talking to each other and communicating with each other in any way that isn't directly face-to-face, you're talking about media. So television is absolutely on there. You certainly get key places where television features more or less prominently throughout the degree. Obviously, in the film and media degree, film is one major strand. And one of the key differentiations between that and media and communications is that there is just going to be a lot more cinema, effectively, on your degree. It's not going to be the only thing you study by any means, but we will be working from within that kind of traditional cinema studies paradigm in a lot of your core modules. That doesn't mean you won't do any film on media and communications either, particularly on your option modules. You'll have space to go and explore cinema there on media and comms. But film is one of the big differences in terms of what film and media offers, and then on media and comms, they offer a little bit more in the way of professional communications. There's some shades of public relations discourse that kind of fit into that degree.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I think the modules that are listed in bold there are for the film and media program, the theatre and film and the media and comms. Students don't take them automatically, but can choose electives later on.
One kind of good key introductory reading, if you're really into cinema, David Bordwell has written a book called Film Art that gets a new edition just about every year. But basically any edition of that book, and the old ones will be relatively cheap secondhand, any edition of David Bordwell's Film Art is not a bad place to start with.
Absolutely second that one. And also, before you get your hands on the book, he runs a blog, so it might be worth checking that out as well. I think it's just called Bordwell Blog, if you just Google David Bordwell blog, which he posts semi-regularly on, and he's one of the, the big hitters in terms of film analysis and film theory historically. Right, I'll wrap up there. You can always email any of us, and if you have some more questions that you want to ask. I think we're also going to send out a kind of activity pack for those who want to do a little bit of light reading over the summer. Not that we necessarily say that you have to, it's totally optional, but the feedback we got, Louise is laughing, the feedback we got from the last one of these is that people would be quite keen to see some kind of a taster of what university life might be like. So have a look out for that. But thanks for taking the time to chat to us today. You can email us in retrospect, absolutely no problem, and good luck over the summer. Take care of yourselves and your family.
Yeah, thanks very much for coming, everyone. Hope to see you in September.